Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tech Talk. I'm your host, Jeff Hootselle, and Chief Cloud Officer with Auditmacs. As you guys know, if you've tuned into the show before, Tech Talk is an interview show. We talk to IT leaders and subject matter experts really around all areas of technology. We kind of get their take on current events and things that are happening, as well as technology that they're experts in, things that they're passionate about. So we always have great guests on the show. Today is no different. We're really excited today. We've got JR Tietsort from Darktrace. JR is the CISO for the company, has a great background, a lot of expertise, so we're really excited to have him on today and talk about some of the things that are really relevant in terms of security in the marketplace. So, JR, thanks for joining us.
Jeff, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting with you today.
Yeah. So, JR, maybe for folks that aren't familiar with Darktrace, you guys obviously have a great reputation in the industry. You're one of the world's leading cyber AI companies. Tell us a little more about the company and kind of your unique place in the market.
Darktrace has been a really interesting company in terms of the innovation coming in the cybersecurity industry. Founded in 2013, primarily approaching the cybersecurity problem at that time with an assumption that networks are already breached and how do we find what's going on inside. And this question drove really innovation and what ultimately became a cyber AI platform that is really making a difference for the 4,000 customers that have brought us on board so far.
Yeah, so talk about that a little bit. I know people hear that concept and they think about, it's your network's probably already been compromised. There's, the idea of being able to put up these walls and keep everyone out is almost a fallacy. I think people are uncomfortable with that a little bit, but is that really the reality today?
It's difficult to put up walls around something that is no longer in one place. And if we look at the evolution of cloud and mobile and now remote workers, your data is no longer in one place. It's in many places. And there's a significant challenge in understanding where it all is and what's happening to it. And so we find that just getting visibility of all of this is paramount. There's no longer a question of putting walls around it.
Yeah. So as you're talking to different organizations, some of your clients, and they're starting to formulate what their strategy looks like around defending their data, in their environment, where do you kind of start at? What's a good foundational kind of approach and exercise when they're thinking about their security strategy?
Customers that I work with are across the spectrum in terms of maturity. How developed are their security programs? Do they have a security team? What's the experience level of those folks? What's the age of the company? It's a really complex problem to look at on an organization by organization basis. So for smaller shops or those that are really just starting to think seriously about their controls and better risk management, it's usually about trying to understand what's happening, and visibility and detection are the natural places to start because that will point you at problems and controls that need to be improved going forward.
Yeah, so when you talk about this concept of this autonomous response technology and really what that means, like you mentioned a second ago, of being able to identify when there's something wrong or there's an anomaly happening in the network and identify it quickly and respond to it quickly. Talk to it a little bit about what you guys are doing with AI and kind of these automated responses.
Yeah, so Darktrace, invented the term autonomous response in this context a few years ago, and it was really a nod towards automation driven by an algorithm as opposed to a playbook. And if you boil this down very simplistically, it's the ability for the AI to take a unique response in disrupting an active cyber threat that might be different on my network than the response would be on your network, simply because the situation is entirely unique. And it's this uniqueness that really demands an AI algorithmic approach as opposed to a playbook approach, because it's just too difficult to keep the playbooks current for the new campaign tactics and 0 days and that sort of thing. So we found that an AI algorithm approach here really helps you prevent against things that you don't know and can't be known yet, because it might be the first time you're seeing that threat, or that the threat is being seen at all.
Yeah, and are you seeing a spike in that now? So obviously things kind of changed overnight with the COVID pandemic and people being forced to kind of push out and work remotely from different environments and from home and all those different circumstances. How does that play into this, right? It's one thing if, it's hard enough to, like you said, track where all your information sits at when you're in an office environment and you have some cloud providers, but now that you've sent all your employees home, how has that affected how you guys approach that for your clients?
The threats moved because the data moved and the people moved. Humans unfortunately continue to be the weakest link. So when COVID hit and the pandemic hit, the phishing and social engineering spiked, and it still remains high. And then when you moved your workers to their home-based networks that potentially had fewer security controls in place, the social engineering was that much more effective. So we've seen the threats generally move to email, cloud, and identities, as opposed to what might have been a traditional try to breach an on-premise network. The workers are the thing that we need to watch and to protect, and so we need to move where they are. And if they're remote, then that's where the security controls need to be.
Yeah, and I guess that's really where the AI component of your solution comes in, right? So you don't want IT to come in and just lock everything down from a security standpoint because, hey, it's safer if we control everything and lock everything down, but it's so restricted that it actually affects the business model. So how do you kind of find that right balance of, we want our people to still be able to function, to serve their customers, to communicate internally and to be flexible, but we need to protect them as well and be safe. So how do you kind of balance that kind of juggling act between those two?
Well, Jeff, as a security practitioner, I would probably be strung up if I said, we don't need to lock anything down. Clearly, there's a line to be walked in terms of security versus usability and productivity. And that's something that has to be taken into account in order to gain value for the business and have security not be a restrictor to productivity. That said, there are legitimate data sharing methods that need to be in place for the business to conduct its operations. And how do you figure out what data sharing is legitimate versus malicious through that channel that you have to permit? And that's where anomaly detection plays a role. If we use one of the leading file sharing providers to conduct our business, then we open it up through the firewall, we permit employees to connect to it, that's great. How do we know that an insider now is uploading data with the intention of stealing that data and removing it outside of the walls? These are the anomalies that we're able to pick up from taking a machine learning approach to this problem.
Yeah. So I'm interested, with everything that's happening right now, there's definitely an effect on the economy that we all feel. We see businesses struggling right now, and some are shutting their doors. You're seeing every day more and more Chapter 11s filed, and a lot of the CIOs and CISOs we're talking to, their budgets are more strained now than ever. As you're talking to customers that have, restrictions around budget and they only have so many dollars to spend right now, how do you advise them to where they should invest those dollars when it comes to a strategy for services like we're talking about?
It's a great question, and it's something that a lot of businesses are challenged with and dealing with. What we found is some businesses are moving some of those limited dollars more into the security budget because they realize the increased threats that their businesses are facing in this pandemic environment. For those that are looking at restrictions or reductions, vendor consolidation is generally where they're looking. And they're looking for partners that can be platform plays, that they can get more value out of an existing investment and try to reduce some of the tools in their toolbox. And this can be effective. The challenge is to ensure that you're getting everything that you think you're getting, and to do some testing there when you're making those decisions.
No, that's great. That's a great point. So, Jeff, folks that want to find out more about Darktrace, they're really interested in the stuff you're talking about, they want to learn more about it, or they want to connect with you and hear more, where should they go to find out some more about you guys?
So the website, of course, darktrace.com, lots of folks there would be happy to talk to you. I'm certainly available if anyone would like to chat about security best practices or Darktrace technology. I'm on LinkedIn as well as on the website. So I'd look forward and welcome follow-on conversations to whatever extent that they would like.
Yeah, it's great. We have a bunch of customers that use you and love you guys, so I definitely suggest folks go out and check out Darktrace. They're a fantastic organization. JR, thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate having you on the show and having you part of our IT community. Definitely some good information, some good nuggets you shared there, so thanks so much for joining us.
Jeff, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
All right, you got it. Take care, be safe out there, and thank you guys for tuning in to another Tech Talk. We look forward to catching you again soon.